Apple Blitz with Anthony Rivardo and Matt O'Leary.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Big Apple Blitz. What is going on? Matt O'Leary alongside Anthony Rivardo. Anthony, I hate to ask, how are you doing this Monday?
Can I say that I'm surprised by what happened yesterday? I mean, you guys heard me for the last several weeks. I had very little confidence in this team, but I will even say I thought we would do a little bit better than that. Like, that was embarrassing yesterday. The Giants didn't even look like an NFL football team. They were incompetent. Daniel Jones, the year 6 leap, I think is dead in the water, unfortunately. Man, that was ugly. Not a lot of fun, but definitely a lot to talk about after that game.
Yes, we have a lot to get into. Figure we go chronological here. We'll start with the Giants, then preview the New York Jets in the second half of this one. Zachary Berner, I mean, he starts us off in the comments. With the New York Giants first round pick, they select what quarterback? I mean, it really, I do feel bad for Giants fans. I'm going to be completely honest with you because it's one game into a 17-game season, and already on the timeline, I am seeing NFL draft talk. And like that is just so depressing after one game into the season to be like, our quarterback is really this bad. And I'll pull up the box score because I think, how is that not the biggest takeaway from this game? I'm sure there's a lot that we can get into, but just wanted to pull up the stat line. 22 of 42, 186 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, including a pick 6. Unreal.
I mean, I can't believe they let him throw the ball 42 times. What are we doing? Like, how was he in the game through all 4 quarters? After the first quarter, I was ready to pull him and put in Drew Lock. After the second quarter, I was begging. After the third quarter, I was on my hands and knees. And we made it through 4 quarters of Daniel Jones football. It was brutal. And Brian Daboll was asked after the game, did the idea of benching Daniel Jones ever cross your mind? Nope. That's what he said. Nope. Never crossed his mind. Even though there was 20,000 fans screaming at him to put in Drew Lock, it never crossed his mind. I think it's ridiculous. I think it ties into everything that I've been saying for several weeks about Daniel Jones and the privilege that he gets from this Giants coaching staff. He doesn't have to play in the preseason. He doesn't get any competition for his starting quarterback job. It's ridiculous. All of the criticisms that I've had of the guy, they were all on display in this week 1 game. He's terrible under pressure. He adds his own pressure. I mean, the offensive line, I thought, played a great game. I don't think they allowed that much pressure. But how many times did Daniel Jones just run into pressure or run into a sack? So I see a couple comments down below, who are the Giants selecting in the first round? Welcome to New York, New Jersey, Carson Beck. I like Cam Ward. I just posted a little highlight clip of him. I'm excited for Cam Ward out of Miami. I was a huge fan of him out of Washington State when he initially declared for the draft, went back and transferred. Big fan of his and big fan of a lot of these quarterbacks in the draft. And hell, man, it sucks that it's September and I have to start talking about quarterbacks in the draft class already. But this is the sad reality of this Giants football team. I mean, Daniel Jones is just unable to put together a competent offense. We've seen it time and time again. And yesterday was one of the most egregious occurrences of him just being a bad quarterback.
Yeah, Frank's hanging with us and said, my brother is a Giants fan and is still blaming everyone else in defending. How could this possibly be? And for like full transparency, obviously Jets fan, rocking the Jets jersey today. I have spent my whole life watching shitty, awful quarterback play. If anyone knows bad quarterback play, it's me. I've watched it my entire life. What Daniel Jones has put on tape, and in this game in particular, in week 1, is as bad as it gets. We saw it in the preseason. In the limited time that he played, which you were right at the time to bring up too, how he needed to get more reps. They were treating him like he was this franchise quarterback who didn't need to go out there. He was fine. Like he wasn't coming off an injury or a horrific showing in 2023. And just goes out throws a horrendous pick six interception. The one in the end zone, I get they were down. And he's trying to force the ball, but again, a poor decision. And then I love too, you had a tweet earlier today that I wanted to pull up because there was a lot of discussion on the play calling and that the Giants didn't do a good enough job with their play calling. And this one clip in particular is making the rounds. But as you rightfully point out, it's an RPO and he made the wrong read.
Yeah, this is totally, if you run through the clip, you'll watch, and there's a lot of people saying, wow, what uninspired play calling. You're throwing a screen here. And no, look, because if you see that slot receiver, he never even tries to chip that linebacker. That should be the number one tell for everybody. That linebacker is supposed to go unblocked because this isn't a run pass option. It's very clearly an RPO. Daniel Jones is supposed to read, does that linebacker crash? Does he follow Singletary? Does he follow the wide receiver? He doesn't follow Singletary, so that's where the ball is supposed to go. Jones never even thinks twice about it. He just throws this to a covered Malik Neighbors for an incompletion. This is an RPO. This is the standard of the Giants offense. We get a lot of complaints about how Dable doesn't call good plays or Kafka wasn't calling good plays and how this offense is stale. The plays are there. They're just not being executed because this is a staple in college offenses. This is a college football play. This is not an NFL 3-level read against a cover 3 or a disguised cover 2 defense. That's not what this is. It's a basic RPO where you have to decide as the quarterback, am I handing this ball off or am I throwing it? And he just made the wrong decision and it results in an incompletion. You cannot blame the offensive coordinator or the head coach for that. You can only blame the quarterback for not knowing how to read a defense at the most basic rudimentary level.
I know I'm preaching to the choir on this one, and you're probably tired of talking about it, but like on that play in particular too, you could live with a guy if that's his debut, maybe his fourth start in the NFL. Daniel Jones has started 60 games in the NFL. How do you not know how to make a read on an RPO? The leash that he has gotten is absolutely insane. At this point, it's a matter of when, not if, are the Giants going to end this Daniel Jones experiment. I'm sure they'll try to, kick the can down the line for a few more weeks here. And again, I'm sure there's other things you want to talk about in this game. A 28-6 loss, really uninspiring effort, but unfortunately, it's going to continue to go back to the quarterback because again, the play is not good enough, and this isn't the young quarterback excuse anymore. You don't have that. If it was one of his first, I'll even go 20 starts in the league. He's played 3 times that amount of football. He started 60 games. This can't continue to happen in a guy's 6th season. I really don't know what else to say.
Me neither. Like I said, these are just very basic concepts that are being put on the field, and he's not executing them. And you mentioned there that the Giants are probably going to kick the can down the road a little bit, and they're not going to bench him immediately. But I'm going to bring this up as I have many times. They cannot afford financially to do that because if he gets hurt, he ran into so many sacks and ran into tackles. He was running the ball, scrambling and diving headfirst in the contact, which, reminder, that's how he suffered that season-ending neck injury in 2021 by running into contact. He keeps doing that. He has another season-ending injury. The Giants all of a sudden owe him another $30 million in the offseason. So they can't afford to just kick the can down the road and wait and then eventually bench him. There's the age-old saying in business, right? You hire slowly and you fire quickly. The Giants need to fire quickly in this case. Otherwise, they're going to be on the hook for a lot more money. So I think it's ridiculous that he's even out there. I think it's ridiculous that we are probably going to have to wait several more weeks to see him get benched. But what he put on the football field yesterday was inexcusable. The pick 6 to Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel knew that play was coming all the way, and he just threw it right to him. And then the pick in the red zone to Harrison Smith. First of all, you just can't turn the ball over in the red zone. Cardinal sin. We all know that. And on that play, he literally just stares down Harrison Smith. He was having a staring contest with the safety and just threw the ball to him. It was ridiculous. This is not NFL level quarterback play. And if anybody wants to say, hey, this is his first game back since the ACL tear, he's rusty, he's got to knock off the rust, then why didn't he play in the preseason? So my criticisms aren't just of Daniel Jones here, guys. I'm not just ragging on this guy. My criticisms are on Brian Dable as well and the poor coaching job that he did, not just yesterday, but all summer long. And I got plenty of criticisms for the defensive coaching staff as well. This was overall just a terrible performance from a New York Giants team that got outcoached, outprepared clearly, and outplayed. All 3 levels, they failed.
Yeah, Rico asks, I think a good question. Do you think Shane Stable survive past this season? Optics are everything. Giving big money to Jones, bad, but add Saquon balling out for the Eagles too. I don't know if he can come back from that. I know you're very open to the idea of letting Saquon Barkley walk in free agency. It is only one game, so I'm not killing the Giants over that decision. I didn't at the time, and I won't do it now. But that certainly adds fuel to the fire, even if it is only just one game. Him going out and having a 3-touchdown performance while the Giants get embarrassed is just it's a tough optics look.
I mean, yeah, it is a tough optics to look. I still think that letting Saquon Barkley walk was the right decision for the long-term health of the financial flexibility of this team. But let's face it, if Daniel Jones didn't have that contract, Barkley probably does have his contract because they can afford to pay players like that and have that luxury. So, yeah, the optics are terrible. If the question is, do I think that Dable and Shane survive this season? I don't know. I think it's really tough to tell because they made some massive mistakes. And the number one thing with Joe Shane is this is now his roster. I think there's only player left from there's like three players or something from the Gettleman era left on the roster. It's like 7 or less. It's a very low number, very low percentage of the active roster was not brought in by Joe Shane. So this is his roster. He chose these Gettleman players that held over. He chose to have them on the team, and everybody else is his own player. And this roster sucks. So this is finally Joe Shane's fully built roster, and it's this bad. He has to be held accountable as well. I mean, this is the prime example. 2022, we had 2 top 10 picks. We had the 5th overall pick in Kayvon Thibodeau. We had the 7th overall pick in Evan Neal. Evan Neal didn't play yesterday. He's on the bench probably for the entirety of the season. And Kayvon Thibodeau got benched halfway through the game. He got phased out of the lineup because he was playing so poorly and contributed 0 to the team. So, yeah, I think you can chop this up many different ways, but Joe Shane clearly hasn't done a good enough job, and Brian Daboll hasn't either.
Johnny Boy wants to know what's your take on what Neighbor said during the post game interview. I know we haven't gotten to the post game portion. I'm sure there's other things about this game that you want to get into also, but saw the question, so figured toss that up on what Neighbors said post game.
And it's a good question. And listen, what else is he supposed to say? He pretty much just said around the fact of, there's only so much he can do if he's getting open, but Daniel Jones isn't getting the ball out. He kind of attributed the blame to the offensive line, but he didn't necessarily say the offensive line was bad. He just kind of mentioned, if he's under pressure and he's not getting the ball out, there's not much I can do. My main takeaway from Neighbors, week 1, he didn't overreact and he didn't get frustrated. He's a rookie superstar wide receiver. Those guys love to get the football. He only touched it 5 times. He didn't really complain. I liked his more reserved response to the game and his takeaways in the post game. So I have no complaints with what Malik Neighbors said. I think he was honest. I think that he obviously wants the football more, but he had 0 outbursts yesterday, and I don't expect him to have any more. I think that he's a good kid and he's got his head on straight, and I'm very happy with his response to those questions.
The one guy who I love this player that I'm going to bring up now. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, but Dexter Lawrence is just an incredible player. One of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. Bright spot on that Giants defense. I thought his post-game comments felt very out of touch. When after the game he says, "I don't respect fans booing, honestly," and then called what the Giants are going through a rough patch. I know you had a very strongly worded tweet on that one, so if you just want to share your thoughts on it, for me, again, just feels so out of touch.
Yeah, I won't use as strong of words as I used in that tweet, but basically my message here is you don't respect fans who boo, then who do you respect? Because those fans who boo, those fans pay your salary. I mean, where do you think the money comes from for an NFL team and for an NFL player? It comes from those fans. And listen, I get it. I understand. Dexter Lawrence, I love you. You are the New York Giants' best player, and you dominated yesterday. He played great. So I get that he's upset if fans are booing him, but we're not booing you. Nobody's booing Dexter Lawrence. Everybody's booing the offense and the overall state of this team because it's not just a rough patch. It's a decade of bad football. The Giants have barely won any game since Dexter Lawrence was drafted. They had 1 winning season. they have every right to boo, especially considering the tickets to these games are out of hand. The pricing for food at these games is out of hand. The price for parking is out of hand. And even the price for merchandise is out of hand. So if fans are willing to spend money on all those things, you're talking thousands of dollars. May not seem like a lot to a multimillionaire in Dexter Lawrence, but it sure is a lot to an average family. It's a lot of money to spend on a football team, and they spend it. And they go to those games and they expect something better than what they were given yesterday. They have every right to boo, and they absolutely deserve the respect of every player, because those fans who spend all that money on those jerseys and tickets, those fans are the ones paying all these salaries at the end of the day. So I really didn't like that comment from Dexter Lawrence. I love Dexter Lawrence, but pointed out here by a Luca Lake Jet fan, Lawrence, with these comments, Evan Neal had similar comments last year. He did. And I will say, to Saquon Barkley's credit, Saquon had the best quote in response to Evan Neal's comments last year, where he said that his message to Evan Neal was, the fans have been here long before us, and they will be here long after us. The fans are always right, and you can't say those types of things about the fans. Saquon was 100% right about that. He absolutely understood what the New York media market was like, and he understood what the fans want. I always respect Saquon. Again, I'm fine with him leaving. I'm happy that he's having success. Just wish it wasn't with the team that he's having it with. But he always had the respect of the Giants fans, and he earned that respect. You don't just get given respect. I mean, come on. I really don't like those comments from Dexter Lawrence, and they are very reminiscent of what Evan Neal said. And again, Saquon Barkley said it best. Been here before you, Dexter Lawrence. Will be here after you. So you absolutely have to have respect for the fans.
Changing gears slightly, but saw this in the comments, thought it was a good question, wanted to toss it your way. What's your thoughts on the Giants not handling adversity, and who is to blame for this?
I mean, there's so much blame to be passed around, and it depends which level of adversity you're talking about, because if you're talking about the decade-long just dry spell of failing to win games, I mean, that's John Mara. John Mara has not made the right changes necessary to adapt to the adversity. And whether you're talking about hiring the right GMs, the coaches, other front office personnel members, hiring his friends and his brothers into the front office, like, those are the bigger, like, large outlook problems with the Giants not being able to handle adversity. But if you want to talk about on a game day, Brian Dable, lack of adjustments, weird personnel decisions. I mean, Isaiah Simmons didn't even play a single defensive snap yesterday. What are we doing? He was a starter all throughout training camp. You know who else was a starter throughout training camp? Jalen Hyatt. He played 6 snaps in the first 3 quarters. What are we doing? Cordell Flott. Remember we talked all summer about how he was going to play outside cornerback? Guess where he played yesterday? In the slot. What are we doing? He spent the entire summer playing outside cornerback, and then he takes all of Andrew Phillips' reps away and plays in the slot. Meanwhile, Andrew Phillips had 4 tackles, a tackle for loss, and a forced fumble in 16 snaps, and he barely freaking played. What are we doing? So on a game-to-game basis, the lack of adversity or lack of ability to handle adversity, that goes to the head coach and the entire coaching staff, because some of these decisions that they make, they just don't make any sense.
Yeah, no, they don't. They deserve a lot of criticism from top to bottom, and that starts with ownership and it goes all the way down to the quarterback. It's just, again, I feel for Giants fans. It really frustrating start to the season, and it just feels hopeless in a way, because there's, what you're getting, unfortunately, out of the quarterback. It feels like you're waiting, and like you spend all off season waiting for week 1, excited to see your team come back and play, and then put up an absolute dud of a performance like that. I mean, I guess we could talk about some other things that happened in this game. I'm sure, not too pleased with the defense either. They let Sam Darnold come into their building and go, hit 12 passes in a row to start the game, right? It was, I believe I have that number right at 12. It was definitely over 10. 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 113.2 rating. One of the most, Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield were essentially the 2 best quarterbacks so far. How does this happen?
I mean, listen, I don't even know what to say to that. There were so many problems with the Giants defense yesterday. They couldn't cover, and I get it. Like, who's covering Justin Jefferson? Not many people. And he didn't even run rampant. It's not like he had 100 yards, but the pass rush just didn't exist. I mean, they had like 1 quarterback hit, and then between Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau combined, 1 quarterback hit. Dexter Lawrence had a sack again. He was great. He was constantly applying pressure, but he cannot be the only one. My problem here is that this is, again, related to coaching. And I will give you the prime example, the perfect play to highlight this. 4th and 2, Vikings are on the goal line. They run one-on-one outside Deontay Banks man coverage versus Justin Jefferson. How do you think that's going to end? I don't care if it's Sauce Gardner. I don't care if it's Pat Surtain. I don't care if it's Prime Darrelle Revis. You don't leave somebody one-on-one on an island in man coverage with Justin Jefferson on the goal line. You just don't do it. Whether you have to put a safety behind them and take somebody else and leave them open, or send a blitzer in that lane so that there isn't a passing lane, or have a linebacker play in the zone so that he can't run a slant route. Whatever you have to do, that's on the defensive coordinator. That's not on Deontay Banks, because Deontay Banks had tight coverage. But tight coverage doesn't matter against Justin Jefferson because he's that good. So that is completely just a coaching thing, and that was the story of the game. They had mismatches and matchup nightmares all across the field, and it's straight up just because the Giants coaching staff was inept. So, and their pass rush just did nothing. Kayvon Thibodeau, again, got benched sometime during that game. He deserved it. He applied zero pressure throughout the game. He's a disappearing act, and I'm really disappointed in not only the way that he played yesterday, but, I mean, really, his inconsistency last season was a problem. This didn't do a whole lot to make us feel more confident in him. So, yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold picking you apart. What are you supposed to say to that?
I don't know. And sometimes he does that. Like his first year in Carolina, I believe the Panthers started 3-0 and he looked awesome. And everyone was dunking on the Jets for letting Sam Darnold go and taking the quarterback, and then kind of came back down to earth. But even still, like, I don't know, this guy's been on a bunch of teams now in the league. He's, a spot starter, good backup. That's, what he is. But he was carving up the defense with ease, as you pointed out. And to me, the glaring or scary thing was the Giants not getting a consistent pass rush. Because I know I've spent most of the offseason when we talk on the Giants discussing their defensive line and how, I like that group and I think they will be able to get pressure. But in this first game, I don't know if they did anything right in this first game, honestly. And I think Rico, the pub, has a good comment here too. Hopefully makes you feel a little bit better. Says, if it's any consolation to Giants fans, the rest of us here are Jets fans. And if there's anyone that you could vent to and we'll totally get it, it's us. Again, I felt that way watching. Now, I'll be completely honest. I didn't sit and have Fox on the entire game and watch start to finish. With my team not playing, I was watching Red Zone all day, but they went to the game a lot. I follow a lot of Giants people on Twitter. So like, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of what was going on in that game. And I've seen that game 100 times as a Jet fan. It sucks. It's the worst. And getting that out of the gate is just brutal, man. So I hope that week 2 goes better for the Giants, and we'll preview the Giants week 2 matchup on Thursday. But I don't know how some Giants fans were talking about, like, oh, it's disrespectful that they're underdogs at home to Sam Darnold, and then the team goes out and puts up this kind of performance.
I mean, I told everybody on Big Apple Blitz I wasn't confident in the Giants winning this game. I thought Brian Flores was going to have his revenge moment against the Giants. He did. He made Daniel Jones look silly, and that's exactly what he wanted to do. And if you notice anything about that game plan from the Vikings defense, it's not like they sent a bunch of pressure and blitzed a ton to try and disrupt Daniel Jones. They were just like, you know what, 4-man rush. Let's sit here. Let's let him throw the ball to us. And he did exactly that. And on the last point on Sam Darnold, Matt, I know that you remember in the offseason, we were previewing free agents. Who did I want the Giants to sign? I wanted them to sign Sam Darnold. I thought that he could be competitive with Daniel Jones. Didn't I say that? Absolutely. Yeah. I said that he would be the perfect backup because he has starting experience in New York. He had a year under Kyle Shanahan that he just learned. He might actually surprise some people this year with Kevin O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings. And absolutely, he's going to surprise some people, and he absolutely did in week 1. And the Giants, they didn't surprise me. They looked just as bad as I thought they would. I don't know. Actually, they did surprise me. I didn't think they would look this bad because this was ridiculous what we saw in week 1.
No, that was just not competitive in the least. So, sorry, a really tough start to the season for the Giants. Don't like that for Ant. Although he says, don't worry, you all beat Washington. Are you confident that the Giants can beat Washington coming up here?
I'm not, because Washington, no, they didn't look great yesterday. I understand that, but they still score touchdowns. The Giants didn't score a single touchdown on offense. Like, how do you expect to beat anybody if you can't score? Jaden Daniels ran for 2 touchdowns yesterday. What did Daniel Jones do except for throw two picks, and including one that was a touchdown for the other team? So, no, I'm not confident. I think that Jaden Daniels is going to make Brian Dable feel really, really upset because, listen, Dable really wanted Jaden Daniels. We saw Hard Knocks. He was pushing to get the Giants to move up for him. he ends up in Washington. Week 2, if Jaden Daniels just severely outperforms Daniel Jones, it's going to be ugly.
I liked what I saw out of Jaden, and it's only one game. I'm not writing off Bo Nix or Caleb Williams for their performance, and I'm not crowning Jaden Daniels, but I thought there were some pretty positive signs from Jaden in a loss. So good luck. I mean, if they didn't get any pressure on Sam Darnold, if you're not getting pressure on Washington and Jaden Daniels next week, good luck to that defense, because I think he's just going to tuck it and run and be an absolute problem. So, God, brutal start. But let's transition. Let's preview this big Jets 49ers game. Anthony, I'm rocking the Aaron Rodgers jersey. 364 days ago, Aaron Rodgers suffered a Achilles injury 4 plays into the New York Jets season. I've said this on this show a million times on social media. Jet fans are so ready for this. We feel like it's just been the biggest tease since March of 2023. I'm nervous. I'm excited. I'm going through all different kinds of emotions. I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to do with my hands. You got to help me out here a little bit. Like, what should I be expecting or hoping for in this game coming up against the San Francisco 49ers?
I think that you're expecting a defensive grudge match. These are 2 really good defenses. Offensive play around the league yesterday was kind of down. Like, we didn't see a lot of high-flying passing attacks. We did see some good rushing, but overall, I think that we did see a sloppy first week of football, which is kind of normal. We usually do see these things. And so going into this game, it's on the road for the Jets. It's against a really great 49ers team that just lost the Super Bowl. They have an excellent defense. Obviously, they have loads of talent on offense as well. I think we get a nice defensive matchup here. But I do think if anybody's going to run free for the New York Jets, and I know we were talking about this a little bit before we started going live on air, I think Breece Hall is in store not only for a big game, but for a huge season. So I like him to get ready and get cooking in week 1 here.
Yeah, I love that you called that out, because I agree with you on both accounts that you just said. The over under in this game, or the point total, is set at 43. The under feels like a really good play here. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I think both defenses come out and are strong. Both are projected to be really good. As you rightfully pointed out, so far in week 1, a lot of sloppy football that just tends to happen now, especially with only 3 preseason games as compared to 4. The Jets didn't play their starters in the preseason, so we'll see if there's any rust there. And Rodgers didn't play really at all last year. It's like it's a nervous excitement for this game, but I would think the Jets offense is really going to lean on Breece Hall, especially with Rodgers coming back off the injury. I don't think they're going to ask him to throw a ton in this game, but it would not shock me if between rushes and catches, if he's touching the ball, I don't know, 25 times in this game, between, again, with carries and receptions. I think he's going to be a major focal point of this offense, and like looking at like 125, 150 all-purpose yards and a touchdown today.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's going to have a huge game, and I think those high markers that you just mentioned there in terms of his statistics, absolutely attainable for him. But I do also like Aaron Rodgers to get a few nice passes out to Garrett Wilson. They've had great chemistry all throughout training camp. I think he's going to have a decent game. I just agree with you that this is probably a game where Rodgers might have some rust. I mean, it's been a long time since he's played football. It's been a long time since the Jets have played at full speed, so they might be a little bit sluggish out of the gate, but I do think as the course of the season wears on, they're going to pick it up. Obviously, everybody knows I'm very high on the New York Jets this year, and I love their defense, but they will be without their top pass rusher. I'm sure that you have a take on that and a lot of opinions, and obviously we've kind of exhausted all of our points on Hassan Reddick, but now it's official. He's not playing tonight, and I wonder what you think that that means for this Jets defense and what kind of matchup that bodes well for the 49ers.
Yeah, so for Hassan Reddick, he's holding it. Let me pull up the Schefter tweet, because I quote tweeted it, but Jets holdout edge rusher Hassan Reddick will forfeit a game check of nearly $800,000 for missing tonight's regular season opener versus 49ers, and an additional nearly $800,000 for each game he misses. This is on top of more than $5 million in NFL mandated fines that he has already accumulated. Hassan Reddick's agent's got to be one of the dumbest motherfuckers in the NFL. How did it get to this point? And again, I've said that the Jets have been a little bit stubborn on this too, but from Reddick's side, he's going to be a free agent at the end of this year. If he holds out for the entire season, he doesn't accrue another season. So we were right back to where we started with Hassan Reddick on the same contract that he's currently on and a member of the New York Jets. So he won't hit free agency. He's costing himself an insane amount of money. But for what that means for this game, I would prefer to have Hassan Reddick out there. I think he is their best pass rusher off the edge. I'm a little bit nervous about what we see out of Michael Clemens, who's projected to start opposite of Jermaine Johnson. I would imagine that they work Will McDonald in a lot in obvious pass rushing situations, maybe Tack McKinley, who had a very strong preseason as well. But looking at this Jets defensive line against the 49ers offensive line, I think where they will get the most pressure is off the interior with guys like Quinnen Williams and Javon Kinlaw going up against what is a weaker interior offensive line against the 49ers. Trent Williams is back. He'll play a huge factor for them on the outside at left tackle. So while it sucks that Reddick's not playing in this game, I think the Jets could actually have an advantage with their interior pass rush.
I do agree with you on that note. I think that the defensive line on the interior for the Jets is excellent, among the best in the NFL. I know PFF ranked it number 1 in the NFL, and that actually created a stir amongst Giants fans recently. I'm not sure if you caught that one, but I think that the Jets defensive line is elite. I think their interior is elite. I think that what they have with Quinnen Williams and everybody else in there, excellent. And they have depth for days on the defensive line. So yeah, I like their ability to apply pressure from the interior. And I also do think that just generally speaking in football and in the NFL, when you apply pressure on the interior is actually the most crucial part of the defensive line / offensive line to get that pressure, because that forces the quarterback to then push backwards in the pocket, which then creates more rushing lanes for those edge rushers and makes life easier for them. So we could see Quinnen Williams push this pocket into Brock Purdy's lap. He has to step back. And Will McDonald might come off the edge, and we might get Jermaine Johnson. Those guys might actually get really productive. And this is kind of like a larger point that we've made about this pass rush throughout the offseason and how I've said, listen, Hassan Reddick not being out there, that's a huge loss, but I do really like these other guys. And I could see Will McDonald having a sneaky good season because I think they're so strong on the interior of the defensive line that even last year, like Bryce Huff, he didn't play all 3 downs for them. He was very much a rotational pass rusher, but he looked excellent and he got paid this offseason. And I do think a lot of that had to do with the fact that the Jets have a really strong interior defensive line, and it creates a lot of opportunities for their edge rushers to get pressure on the quarterback. Now, that's not always a one-to-one translation. It doesn't always work. We saw that yesterday. Dexter Lawrence was a monster on the interior, and Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau did nothing. So it doesn't always work that way, but with this Jets team, I really love all the talent that they have on that defensive line. And I think Quinnen Williams pushes the pocket. And I think it does create a few opportunities for Will McDonald and for Jermaine Johnson to apply some good pressure to Brock Purdy and rack up a couple of sacks.
Hype chimes in with a super chat. Thank you for your support, Hype. He says, Jets make the 49ers look like the Browns did yesterday. Brock Purdy is a significantly better quarterback than what Deshaun Watson is at this point in his career. Daniel Jones and the Giants might be bailed out because there's only one contract that's worse than that right now at the quarterback spot. And that's what the Browns did with Deshaun Watson getting $230 million guaranteed. He is horrendous. He played really bad in that game, but I don't think the Jets are able to do that to this San Francisco 49ers the offense. As much as I would love to see that. Your thoughts on the Browns' performance yesterday, and if the Jets could do that to Purdy and the Niners?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Dallas Cowboys defense is excellent. Everybody here knows that even though I'm a Giants fan, I have a lot of respect for that Cowboys team. I do think Jerry Jones is the best GM in football. Look at how many Pro Bowlers and All-Pros they've drafted throughout the last 2 decades. It's utterly insane. That Cowboys defense is going to make a lot of people look bad. And the Browns are bad. And Deshaun Watson is atrocious. So that game went exactly how I thought it would. I got to tell you, Matt, that was the easiest bet of my life yesterday, taking Cowboys at plus 130. What the hell was Vegas thinking? Like, that was ridiculous. The Browns are not that good. I get it. They got a decent defense. Cowboys offense is better than their defense, and the Cowboys defense was always going to dominate the Browns. So, the Jets aren't going to make the 49ers look like the Browns did, I don't think, just because I think the Browns are really bad. but the Jets defense is solid. And I think that, again, this is going to be a defensive grudge match that can go either way. 49ers or Jets could win this game. And I think it's going to be low scoring, and it's probably going to come down to one of the final 3 possessions of the football game.
Now, I don't think this is going to happen, but I will point out there were 2 games last year where Brock Purdy played pretty garbage. One was against the Ravens, who have a great defense, 4 interceptions, 42.6 rating. The other was against Cleveland, who has a good defense, just 125 yards passing, 55.3 rating. Again, that's not what I'm predicting, but we have seen some tough matchups for Brock Purdy in the past. I think they're going to rely a lot on the run game. I would be surprised if Purdy throws the ball, honestly, more than 30 times. I think he's probably somewhere between 25 and 29 passing attempts in this game. But if the Jets are to win, I think, as something that we talked about, the interior pressure, I think, is going to have to be a really big factor in this one.
Totally agreed. Like, I think that is the key to victory for this Jets team is, can Quinn Williams grab 2 sacks? Can one of them come on 3rd down? And can that ultimately win the game for the Jets? Like something crucial in a late moment from Quinn Williams. So I'm with you. I think the interior pass rush, but also on the offensive side of the ball, I think the key is for Breece Hall to live up to the hype and have a big game. Because if he runs for 150 yards, the Jets are going to be in the driver's seat of this game. I think it needs to be a rush first attack. I think that's where you win. And I think it's also got to be great pass rush on the defensive side of the ball. That's where you win on that side. So Brock Purdy, I don't think he makes a ton of mistakes. I don't think he's mistake prone. I know he's passing yard prone. I mean, he had a ridiculous amount of yards per attempt last year. So you have to try and watch out for those big plays from this 49ers offense as always. But you also have to understand that a lot of those big plays are going to be generated through screens, which is an extension of their running game. And so the Jets, I was actually looking at this earlier today. The Jets ran man coverage only 33% of the time last season. So they sat down in a lot of zones. I think against a 49ers team like this, yeah, you're still going to run a lot of zone. I think they should run a little bit more man just to make sure that the screen game doesn't get out of control, right? You man up on a guy on a screen, and sometimes you could sniff those out and you could cause some problems and take away that screen play. I think that's actually the role that the Jets cornerbacks need to play here, is play a little bit more man and make sure that those screens to Debo and Brandon Ayuk don't kill you.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think that and covering Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield is going to be huge for them in this game. Now, First Aid Jets points this out, which I wanted to bring up as well. C-Mac with an Achilles calf. Are the Niners playing injury report games, or will it affect his usage? I mean, he was dealing with it all summer, and I don't know. You could be honest and call me out if this is me like trying to spin zone this into a Jets positive and talking myself into the Jets winning this game. But I feel like that's a really big deal. If Christian McCaffrey is not 100%, I think that plays a major factor for the 49ers offense. They love to run their offense through him. And the calf, and it always goes the calf first, then usually the Achilles. Is that a ticking time bomb this year for Christian McCaffrey?
That would be the fear. And my fear here is that Christian McCaffrey is going to cook some parlays that I made. So I'm a little scared about that. But with Christian McCaffrey's injury, it's weird because if you Google Christian McCaffrey injury, you see an ESPN report that says he's a full participant and he's going to get a full workload in this game. What does a full workload in week 1 for Christian McCaffrey look like? Is that 30 touches? Because that's kind of what most people think of when they think of full workload for Christian McCaffrey. But then you also think, all right, the 49ers rushing attack is dominant, like with whoever they plug back there. He just takes it to another level. So are they going to go running back by committee? Is a full workload really just 1/3 of the touches out of the running backs for him? I don't know what that looks like. And I do wonder if this is a slight rupture to his Achilles that could get worse over time. Those things don't heal without surgery. As Jets fans and everybody knows, you can't really repair a ligament unless you get it surgically repaired. So I don't know what the situation is here with McCaffrey. I think it's very strange that they're playing it, a little coy and seemingly playing a little bit risky, just running him out there despite the rumored Achilles injury. So they got to be careful with him. I don't know how much of an impact he's going to be able to make tonight if he is injured. But again, for my parlays, I'm hoping that he can at least score a touchdown, even if the Jets win.
Jerry chimes in and says CMC and Kittle is a problem without our best pass rusher. I think I believe I brought this up on Thursday's episode, but anyway, if I did, I'm repeating myself. If not, I think George Kittle has the chance to be the biggest problem for the Jets in this game. For me, with McCaffrey, with the injury ends with how I think they'll deploy their defense against him. Um, I think they're going to put Quincy Williams on him out of the backfield. And I think his speed at the linebacker spot is rare, how he goes sideline to sideline. So I think they'll be okay there. But then the question then becomes, all right, who are you putting on George Kittle? Sauce Gardner is going to be lined up with Ayuk a lot, even though the Jets play a lot of zone, but they're going to travel him more this year, which then that kind of leaves either CJ Mosley, who I like Mosley in the run game, but I think he has really lost a step in coverage. That's a mismatch. Or someone like Tony Adams, who is a little bit more of a smaller ball hawking safety. I think that's a height mismatch, so that he could do some damage up the seam. So ironically here, like McCaffrey and Ayuk, I feel like get talked about the most, but I think it's George Kittle who I think could do the most damage against the Jets tonight.
I kind of do agree with you, and I think that a lot of people are kind of down on Kittle this year and sleeping on him because he's had some injuries in recent seasons and he's taken a little bit while to get things going. Like last year, he didn't really make a huge impact in the beginning portion of the year for the 49ers. Took him a little while, was a little bit banged up, but we all know how great George Kittle is when he's healthy, and he's ready to rock and roll. And I think that he is probably in line to have a great game in the middle of the field for the 49ers. Especially knowing how good this defense is with the Jets and how they do play a lot of zone coverage. Kittle's really good at sitting down in between zones and getting open and creating chunk yardage for the 49ers offense. Whether you're talking 5 yards a pop or 7 yards a pop, or even scramble drill happens, he has some of that Travis Kelce to him where he can find an open area and just sit down and create a play for Purdy. So I think you're right. I think Kittle is that mismatch for this Jets defense, and that's that player that they really do need to key on because McCaffrey, if he's fully healthy, he's going to run all over the place. Like how great he is, and there's really not much that you can do to slow him down. Like you just have to make sure that he doesn't absolutely kill you rather than partially kill you. But Kittle is one of those players that if you don't game plan for properly, he can be that X factor that totally kills you. So I think you make a really good point bringing him up, as did the comment from Jerry Spence there. And I think with a zone coverage heavy team, that's where Kittle does a lot of his damage, and the Jets do need to be careful with that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I am on it. But again, kind of just as we get into the final few minutes here on the show, I'm really excited for this game, even if the Jets aren't able to pull it off and get a win. I think, you look at the primetime games that we got so far, I think they've all been pretty exciting. Last night's game was great between the Rams and the Lions, and who knows, maybe I'm setting myself up for letdown again on national television. Wouldn't be the first time that's happened here. But again, Jet fans have been waiting for a really, really, really long time for Aaron Rodgers to finally play. And I think we're going to get an exciting one at the very least in San Francisco.
I think it's going to be a really fun game. I can't wait for tonight's game. Canceled my plans to watch this game. I'm hyped. I'm ready for some New York Jets primetime football. This is a do-over for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. I pray to God things go according to plan this time. I don't want us both to be in misery for this entire season, so knocking on wood and hoping that nothing bad happens, but I don't think anything will. I think this is what we've all been waiting for. I think what all Jets fans have been waiting for is finally going to unfold this season, and I think it's all going to get started with a really exciting game tonight.
Absolutely. So we'll be back on Thursday. We will get to talk about whatever happens tonight with the Jets and Niners, then get into a Jets-Titans preview, as well as previewing the New York Giants Week 2 matchup. So, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Please make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. Find Anthony's work over on Fireside Giants. Me, you can find me at Matt O'Leary NY. That'll do it. I'm Matt. He's Anthony, and we'll catch you next time.